Robert here is Devon Vale. Minister, this is for you. I think you're aware that there are a number of AONBs which are asking for boundary variations. I'm told that there are 2 new national parks which also are based on AONBs at the present, which would like to happen. 5 areas which want to become new AONBs, and 6 which require boundary variations. These are not frivolous, and it's interesting that almost all of them are in the south of England, which are under huge pressure from development, particularly with the easing of the planning laws. I'm told by Natural England that at the present, with the present resources, achieving the aspirations that I've just mentioned will take 50 years. This is a scandalous situation, and I urge you to ask Natural England to devote more resources to this, because if you don't, most of us will be dead long before the aspirations are achieved.
Well, Robert, I had a wonderful day in the Devon Vale, and thank you for your hospitality. And I must, although the time is short, say that I was taken to a hill, and I was asked to look one way and then the other, and then was asked, well, Minister, which of these views is designated and which is not? I knew exactly what was, of course, going on. And of course, I gave you the answer that you expected me to give you, which was that we clearly need to ensure that we designate those areas that are outstanding. And one of the things, and I will cut this very short by saying, I am meeting Andrew Sells, Chairman of Natural England, tomorrow. That is what the agenda item is all about. So I think it's the easiest way of saying to all is that clearly there is no intention of lowering the bar, because we would expect the designations of national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty to be all of those things. But I'm very conscious and alive to the need that we do have appropriate designations, and so it is work in hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any more short questions?
Nick Johansson, Director at the Kent Downs Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. It's a question that plays to you all. All the great work comes primarily out of the AONB management plans. Our bids, our work to the HLF, to the Arts Council, our work with the farmers. The management plans should, and for national parks also, should be at the heart of what is, and several of you have mentioned, opportunities for the future. So as we look, thinking perhaps particularly about Brexit, how can we, and it's a large we, how can we all make sure that these locally developed, locally legitimate plans for nationally important places be at the heart of the new opportunity, perhaps particularly around the new opportunities that are brought forward by Brexit, but also in the Heritage Lottery strategy and Arts Council work. But perhaps we should start with the Brexit opportunity.
Who would be brave to go first?
I'll give a very quick start point. I think one of the things that's imperative is to recognise that the environmental regulations set within the European context are the lowest possible level that lobbyists could get them to against the upsurge of environmental knowledge. So the start point is to say, if you could not fail, and took all of the knowledge of reality into account, where would you set your ambition? So if you could not fail, where would you set your aspiration in terms of the change you want to see happening within the AONB, and work back from that within the context that we have. So never ever lose sight of what we're actually trying to do, regardless of budget.
Well, I think that, fun enough, I was at the Agriculture Council in Brussels on Monday, and clearly all of these things with the reform of CAP in the EU are going to be, I'm sure, part of what we will be wanting to do with our own domestic policy, is to come forward with shall we say, arrangements that the environment is placed in a very considerable profile. And I think we heard earlier, soil quality. I'm responsible with the Climate Change Adaptation Subcommittee and their conversations with me about soil quality. We want to grow food in this country, and we've got to think about how do we improve our soils. So there are all sorts of ways in which actually the formation of domestic policy is going to be all of these aspects of how do we enhance the environment are going to be components of what will be the next domestic policy with agriculture and the environment absolutely entwined as one. I think that the idea that we spin in varying silos or orbits, agriculture there, the environment there, I don't think that's productive for the farmer. I don't think it's productive for the environment. What we need to do if we are to enhance the environment is to work in that partnership with 70% of the land of England farmed. Okay.
My scribbles just now would be about engaging with the community. So how do you get into the village halls and the pubs and have these conversations with the people who live there and work there and live in the landscapes that you're talking to? And we had a really interesting project recently in the village of Cranbourne, in Cranbourne Chase, where I live, where the estate that owns a lot of the village brought everybody together to look at planning and development over the next 50 years in the village. And it was hugely successful because of the way they went around it. Instead of saying, we want to build houses, we'd like to put them here, what do you think? They said to the community, what do you see your village being in 50 years' time? What do you want? How do you want it to look? How are we going to get there? And the village, the people, came up with far more radical solutions than the planning consultants would have dared put forward. So I would say get out there and talk to people and make the management plan a live thing for them.
Can I just very quick, I think that's my point, is that the management plan is live, is developed with all of the communities, the farmers and landowners, and hopefully should be at the heart of this new opportunity to conserve and enhance these landscapes, because all of that integrating work happens and is articulated locally in a plan adopted by the local authorities. So hopefully we can work coherently and together to put those plans at the heart of the new arrangements.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I would, as you probably can what I said already, I would really support and challenge you really to think more radically in putting those plans together. We are in an environment, I certainly wouldn't like to sit here and try and predict the impact of Brexit or what is going to happen more generally in the economy or where some of the things that Kate was talking about earlier. But I think what we can do within that is stop and think about what are the great assets that we've got, what are the things that we could use to develop our strengths going forward. And one of the offers that I did make yesterday to Howard is that one of the things we can do is through our resilience funding stream help to bring in external expertise if that's what you need to get some of those conversations going. So we would be very keen to particularly help with things that might be valuable across a number of AONBs that might help in that sort of broader thinking. Thank you.
We're about to revise as HLF our long-term strategy. We have a 10-year strategy achieving great art and culture for everyone, which ends in 2020. We want to do another decade-long strategy. We're about to embark on that work at the moment, thinking about what that will include. Ahead of that, we're going to refresh the Arts Council's rural position statement. And I know, because I wrote the previous one, that we didn't get engaged effectively with the people in this room, and I'd like to change that. So we can take account of your views as we develop that statement, which will then feed into our strategy, but also to find ways with which we can engage with you as you implement your plans. Because I think we could learn about how you work a bit better. So I'd like to do that. The other thing that I think is quite interesting is the question of how local people are engaged in the development and delivery of plans, and I point about engaging local people in a 50-year vision for a community is fascinating, because there are a number of planning authorities around the country who have art projects at the heart of those consultations. and we'd be delighted to talk to you about where that's happened and who are some of those artists that have enabled that.
Thank you. Time for perhaps 2 more questions. Correct.
Colette Beckham, I'm the manager at Cornwall AONB. This is a question for Lord Gardner. Obviously, we were expecting DEFRA to produce the food and farming strategy and the 25-year environment plan. Both of those strategies appear to be held up because of Brexit and the election. Is there now an opportunity to consider achieving that integration you were just talking about in your answer to the last question, and actually produce an integrated plan for environment, food and farming?
Well, I think you're right. Events sometimes intervene, and certainly when the first manifesto was talking about two separate 25-year bans, there hadn't been a referendum, general election. So what we're now working on is clearly what will be the arrangements we have post-Brexit, in which, as I say, and I'm not going to get hung up on the word plan or whatever, that there is going to be absolutely co-joined agriculture and the environment within that context, that enhancing the environment, in my view, will be best achieved by working with the people who have the custodianship and stewardship of the land, amongst other parts of the community, and therefore whether it is called a 25-year food and farming and environment plan or not, let's not get hung up on those particular words. There will be a long-term vision which enhances both food production and enhances the environment, and I think that is the way in which all of what Michael Gove is seeking to do, and he's already been around a lot of the agricultural shows, speaking also at to environmental groups, is to show that these two elements must work in harmony, and that is the way we will achieve what I think are the objectives that we all want.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you. I'm going to speak quite loudly. Howard Blashman Association. It's a question for Ros, and completely wholeheartedly support a move to a place-based approach to management or looking at land. But I just wonder how we can ensure that our wholly rural areas are seen as the life support systems and mechanisms for some of our urban areas, rather than go down the route of subdividing artificially our rural and our urban places.
Actually, I think the direction that we're thinking about absolutely supports that we don't artificially think about, which I think is a bit where we've been in the past. We have been thinking sort of rural, urban, and I think we have to be much more inclusive in the way we think about it. And as was mentioned earlier, we funded recently, jointly with the Arts Council, the Great Place Scheme, which is about specifically, I have to say it was a hugely an innovative and has been really exciting scheme, getting people to think about how partnerships based on culture around a place can make a real difference. And we were really anxious to ensure in that we involve both rural places as well as urban places, and we've been able to do that through the selection of the projects which we'll give. And that, I think, is the way in which we would increasingly like to look at things. We always make sure, as HLF, we always make sure that our funding is spread around the country. We push decisions about our funding down as locally as we possibly can, and we will continue to do that. But I think an artificial separation between urban and rural, in our view, is becoming increasingly unhelpful.
Thank you. I'll ask for the last time. Any more questions?
My name is Graham Godbeer. I'm the chairman of East Devon AONB. I'm also on the district council, and I am chairman of the overview committee, which I see is a newly constituted committee, which is I see